Hello, this is Clay Staley, and this is a training on incident investigation. The thoroughness in which we conduct incident investigations is a critical piece to the safety puzzle. It not only helps us understand what occurred in an incident by finding a root cause, but also helps us mitigate the risk of future occurrences. The purpose of today's training is to provide the basic skills and understandings of how to conduct an effective workplace accident and incident investigation. Key points are going to be describing the differences between an accident versus an incident, why do we investigate, the proper investigation steps, and then what we do internally at OX. What is an accident? An unplanned, unwanted, but controllable event which disrupts the work process and causes injury to people. Now, everyone may agree that accidents are unplanned and unwanted, but the third point above in the description, controllable, might be a new concept. And yes, accidents are controllable. The Webster's Dictionary definition of an accident is an unexpected happening, mishap, or chance. But from my experience, I've learned accidents are caused occurrences. They are predictable, and they are a logical outcome of a hazardous condition. They are preventable and avoidable. Hazardous conditions do not have to exist. They are caused by the things people do or fail to do. To the left is a safety pyramid. Starting at the base is unsafe behaviors or hazardous conditions. That makes up the majority of what happens in the workplace. The next tier is near miss, near hit, or close calls. You can also include first aid only injuries in there. The next tier is minor injuries, and then goes to less but more severe injuries, and then hopefully never will we have to experience a fatality. What is an incident? An unplanned or unwanted event which disrupts the work process and has the potential of resulting in injury, harm, or damage to people or property. Statistics show 75% of workplace accidents are forecasted by incidences or near misses. Incidences should be reported and investigated to prevent accidents from occurring. In the picture on the left, it depicts, on the far left, there's an unsafe condition or unsafe act, which is the majority of the safety pyramid from the last slide. The little guy is climbing up, the rung snaps, he falls and nearly gets hurt. Then the third window shows that he falls and actually gets hurt, which would be classified as an accident, which could have been preventable. When comparing accidents and incidences, I like to use the tip of the iceberg analogy. Accidents are the tip of the iceberg. You don't see a whole lot of them, but those are the ones that you see regularly, that we talk about, that we communicate within intercompany. The incidences are the bottom. This is what sank the Titanic. There's a lot more of them. They're not well known. We might not talk about them. Employees might have a small one occur and not report it. Thoroughly investigating incidences will mitigate the potential for accidents or injuries. Before we can conduct a thorough accident investigation, we must understand the three classifications for accident causes. Direct cause, unplanned release of energy or hazardous materials. Indirect cause, unsafe practices and or unsafe behaviors. And root cause, policies and decisions, personal factors, or environmental factors. All three of these are important for our investigation process, and they're important to understand what each one of these means. The accident weed. As you can probably already tell, I'm a very visual learner. I like to use pictures and analogies and tell stories to get my message across. This picture shows the three accident causes. On the left, hazardous condition, which would be considered a direct cause. On the top right, hazardous practices or behaviors, which is an indirect cause. And then the bottom, root causes. So let's just go through some of these. And hazardous conditions, missing guards, poor housekeeping, defective tools, equipment failures, no SDS sheets. Hazardous practices and behaviors, things like horseplay, not following proper procedures, did not report a hazard, ignored the safety rules. Now, down below the ground are the root causes, We've got inadequate work procedures, no follow-up or feedback from management, lack of training, lack of knowledge, lack of safety expectations, poor preventative maintenance programs, poor supervision, lack of leadership, and the rules not being enforced. I like this analogy because the fact is, for the indirect and direct causes, we can try to address those as symptoms, similarly as pulling the weed out of your yard when you see one. But if you don't get to the root causes or the root of that weed, the weed will always grow back. So it's very important when we're doing our incident investigations that we look for the root causes to go back upstream, solve them from there, and help remove the roots, not letting the weed grow. So why do we investigate? We investigate to prevent future incidents that lead to accidents from occurring, to identify and eliminate workplace hazards, to expose deficiencies in our process, our equipment, our policies, and our procedures, to reduce injury and worker compensation costs, and to improve employee morale and the safety culture within OX. Most workplace investigations are conducted on minor injuries, severe injuries, and fatalities. Few investigations occur for near misses and close calls or first aid injuries. And the largest portion of the pyramid, unsafe behaviors and hazardous conditions, have the largest injury causing potential. This traditional thought process is backwards. Yes, we do need to investigate minor injuries, severe injuries, and fatalities to determine root cause. But if we can change the way that we think about this and investigate and do a thorough investigation on unsafe behaviors and conditions and near misses and close calls, we should be able to turn around the pyramid and mitigate the risk that lead to recordable injuries and employees losing lost time. So an accident occurs. Now what? The employee should immediately report the accident to a shift supervisor. That supervisor will first and foremost ensure that the injured worker receives proper medical attention. The supervisor will then notify proper management personnel that an accident has occurred, and the accident investigation process will begin immediately. The longer that we wait to begin the investigation process, the less likely it is going to be that we find accurate information and find out what really occurred. Accident investigation goals. To timely determine the what, how, and why of an event, which will help identify the root cause of the accident, which will in turn help us develop the corrective actions for the direct, indirect, and root cause. It will also aid in preventing future accidents by eliminating any identified hazards. And once all these are found, we will have to communicate the findings and results to the entire company so we can all learn from each other. Accident investigation steps. We're going to first survey the scene, collect the evidence, analyze the data, determine the causes, develop corrective actions, and follow up. When should an investigation begin? An investigation should begin immediately after the incident because the scene changes, equipment, materials, and clues are moved, witness memories fade or change, and evidence is lost. I recommend putting together an incident investigation prep kit. Things that should be included in the prep kit are a checklist of what to do and what to look for, flashlights, recording device, cameras, caution tape, personal protective equipment including gloves or vests, something to write on, something to write with, the proper reporting forms for our internal process, graph paper, that way you can accurately write down measurements, distances, etc., and a tape measure. This kit can be as elaborate or basic as you deem necessary to conduct an investigation. Surveying the scene. Barricade or tape off the area of the accident and keep employees or contractors out of the area. Protect the evidence until investigation is completed. It is important to document the accident scene before any changes are made. Take photos, draw sketches, record measurements. Document injured worker location, witnesses, machinery, tools, energy sources, environmental conditions, or any other possible contributing factor. Please note housekeeping and general work environment. When collecting the evidence, please consider the 4 P's: position, people, parts, and paper. Examine the accident scene closely. Look for clues that will help you understand and make sense of what really happened. Note dents, cracks, or splits in equipment, skid marks, footprints, or spills or leaks or debris. Diagram the scene. Collect distances, size, pressure, or temperatures. Indicate direction on your diagram for later use. Collect support documents such as maintenance records, reports, work orders, schedules, or process diagrams. The interview process. Communicate the purpose of the investigation. It's accident prevention only. This is not a fault-finding mission. It's a data collection process. This will help put employees at ease and help further our safety culture. This is a fact-finding process only and will be utilized to prevent a reoccurrence. Talk to everyone involved. Get preliminary statements as soon as possible. Not a detailed report yet, just enough to understand the situation. Document to maintain records. Use sketches and diagrams to help witnesses if necessary, and let them write their own occurrences if possible. Interview each person involved separately. This includes third-party contractors. Always interview the injured or responsible parties. Recite witness statement back to the witness to ensure clarity. Have the statement signed by the witness, and always end the interview process on a positive note. Once all the evidence is collected, you will then be able to analyze the data. Organize collected evidence into the company's internal investigation reports, which you all should have. Be as detailed as possible, include physical findings. Determine the root cause of the incident. Determine the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And then document the corrective actions and set deadlines for the responsible parties. Why is root cause important? Root cause allows the discovery of underlying or systematic causes rather than generalized or immediate causes of an incident. Successful root cause analysis identifies all the root causes, and there are often more than one. It also helps prevent similar events from occurring again. Below is a link for additional literature. There are 2 root cause problem-solving methods in which we're going to discuss: the 5 whys and the event tree. The 5 whys. I like this approach because it's simple to use. Let's start here. Employee struck by a load from a forklift truck. Why? The forklift skid and tipped over the load. Why? Was he braking too hard? Yes. Why? An unexpected appearance of a pedestrian. Why? Left work early and took a shortcut through the warehouse. Why? Poor work, practice, and supervision. Or the forklift skid and tipped over. Why? Well, he was going too fast. Well, why was he going too fast? Rushed to finish the job. Why? Poor work, practice, and supervision. Okay. Forklift skid and tipped over the load. Why? The oil patch. Well, why was there an oil patch? Poor maintenance. Well, why was that? Lack of supervision of maintenance, or poor preventative maintenance program. The event tree. This is a systematic approach to identifying injury causes and corrective actions. Many of you may recognize this, as it is in our internal investigation spreadsheet. The event tree starts off with identifying immediate causes of an incident: unsafe behavior or unsafe condition. Once one of those is determined, it will move down below to identify systematic causes. It will then take you through a process, asking certain questions, and then leading you down a path whether you answer yes or no. Let's walk through some of this. Is it an unsafe condition? Was it behavioral caused? If it's yes, it will go this way. If it's no, it will go below. Was it engineered correctly? If it's no, does that piece of equipment need redesigned? If it is engineered correctly, was it maintained correctly? If the answer is no, it may need improved maintenance. If it was maintained correctly, was PPE adequate? If the answer is no, you need to evaluate the PPE. If the answer is yes, was it a repeat injury? If that answer is yes, we need to improve the investigation process. If that answer is no, is it too complex? If that answer is yes, do we need to simplify the job? If that answer is no, do we need to remove the job? For unsafe behaviors, is there a skill deficiency? If that answer is yes, is it behavioral caused? Or have the conditions changed? If the conditions have changed, do we need to address the management of change process? If the answer is no, do the SOPs identify the hazards? If that answer is no, we need to update the SOPs. If the answer is yes, are they adequately trained? If that answer is no, we need to arrange the training. If that answer is yes, is the skill used often? If that answer is no, we need to arrange the practice. And again, if that answer is yes, is it too complex? Do we need to simplify the job, or do we need to remove the job? Back up to the top. Is it an unsafe behavior? Is it a skill deficiency? If the answer is no, was the expectation clear to that employee? If that answer is no, do we need to clarify? If the expectation was clear, was the behavior observed? If the answer is no, we need to observe the behavior. If the answer is yes, were there obstacles? If the answer is yes, try to remove the obstacles. If the answer is no, were there inappropriate consequences? If the answer is yes, rearrange those consequences. If the answer is no, does this employee have potential? Yes. Then coach them. No, remove them from the job. Although the event tree is not the end all, it should prompt the right questions to be asked to hopefully lead you down a right path to identify the injury causes and the proper corrective actions. There are 3 documentation reporting steps that OSHA utilizes. The first is a legal investigation form. It is a fact-based only investigation form meant to be filled out manually, and that form is submitted to our legal department. There is an internal investigation form, which is currently in an Excel spreadsheet form that includes the event tree from the previous slides. Then there's also an internal communication PowerPoint in which we have a step-by-step criteria to be filled out, and then we can communicate injuries and corrective actions intercompany. Preparing the reports. The legal investigation forms. This states review hard copy handed out in course, but we're going to review this electronically, and I will send those to you via email. Please send the completed forms to me for review. This is the fact-based legal incident form. To fill this out, the preparer will sign off here, the date, the time, the date in which the incident occurred, the time, was the plant running or shut down, what type of incident occurred, anybody involved, the specific location of the incident, fact-only information regarding the incident, injury information, list all the witnesses that were involved, and then attach any attachments that you may have. This form should be sent to me for review before I forward it to the legal department. Preparing the internal investigation forms. The internal investigation form is in an Excel spreadsheet format which has 3 separate sheets. This is the first sheet. Most of these are drop down that have selections that can be certain information that can be selected. You'd fill out employee information up top. Injury classification is a drop down. Anything about that facility. date, time, date of report, time on the job, equipment involved. This is the event tree that is on this form that you've seen in previous slides. And these, the top line for each of these has a drop down with pre-selected information. We've edited this so the second line is blank, so you can type certain things that might not be in the pre-selected data. This is the second form on the Excel spreadsheet. You will need to type the information in here. Describe the injury and treatment. Describe the incident, including facts leading to the incident, what the employee was doing and what happened. Identify immediate causes, behaviors or conditions that immediately cause the incident. Identify systematic causes, inadequate systems that are causes of the immediate causes. These are right off the event tree from the previous slide. Signatures of the involved personnel, investigator or witnesses, and sign-offs. This is the third sheet on the Excel form, remedial measures or corrective actions. We will need to put in here the plan to prevent reoccurrence of immediate causes and plan to prevent reoccurrence of systematic causes, as well as who's responsible for that plan, the target date, and then follow up with the actual date that task was completed. Preparing the PowerPoint communication. This form of communication is designed to be shared amongst all of the OX locations. Pictures allow us to communicate what exactly happened with an incident and what we are doing to correct the issue. We talk about these on phone calls, we share these among employees in the break rooms, and we have crews sign off that they've been communicated. This is a great tool in order for everyone to share what's going on at the plants and how we've corrected safety incidences. The next few slides are a PDF of the PowerPoint communication in which some of the stuff is blank, but it is an example of how it should look. Safety communication notification. You would input your facility name, the date, the time, and the notification classification, recordable injury, near miss, first aid injury, and a brief detail on what happened. At the bottom of the PowerPoint document, there are notes to follow. Page 2. What happened? This picture depicts the piece of equipment that an employee got hurt on. The plastic sleeves are turned down using the lathe to meet specifications for reuse in the production cutting saws. Page 3. What happened? Attempting to cut this piece off in order to meet length specification. This was turned down to this portion of the sleeve for production spec. Initial condition of sleeve before turning down the lathe looked like this. Page 4. What happened? This is a different angle of the plastic sleeve or bullet. The employee was attempting to cut off this small portion with the lathe to meet length requirements. This sharp, jagged piece of the sleeve is what struck the employee's left index finger. Page 5. What happened? This is a picture of the sleeve in the lathe. The employee was attempting to cut this portion off while the sleeve was secured into the lathe chuck. This is a picture of the carbide tip as it was positioned. Page 6. What happened? The plastic sleeve was secured as such in the lathe. For smaller plastic sleeves, the employee developed a metal pipe to place inside the sleeve and help secure and prevent the sleeve from projecting out of the lathe. Plastic has the ability to flex and bend. Metal typically does not have this ability. Page 7. What happened? The employee was operating the lathe with the right hand on the wheel and the left hand was resting on the platform. The tip caught an awkward piece of the plastic sleeve, causing the sleeve to shift in the chucks, projecting the sleeve and striking the employee's left index finger. Please also note there was no guard on this lathe. Page 8. Action taken and additional information. The employee's finger was wrapped in gauze and was escorted to the local prompt care facility. Employee was then rebandaged and sent to the local ER hospital for treatment. The top portion of the left index finger between the first and second knuckle was removed. This is considered an amputation and was reported to North Carolina OSHA within the required reporting period. The employee was released on restricted duty with no work using his left hand. Page 9. Findings. Behavioral inadequacies. The job was rushed to satisfy production needs. Improper hand placement during lathe operation. Systematic inadequacies. The lathe did not have a proper guard installed over the chuck. On smaller plastic sleeves, employee had developed a metal pipe to insert inside the plastic sleeve that goes into the chuck to prevent plastic sleeve from projecting out of the lathe. This metal pipe was not yet developed for a plastic sleeve this size. After the sleeve was turned down to proper specifications, it could have been cut to proper length using a different piece of equipment such as a saw. Page 10. Corrective actions. The immediate corrective actions. We disconnected the lathe power source, placed equipment out of service, and communicated with employees on status of the equipment. Long term. We removed the lathe from facility and we found alternative ways to accomplish the needs that required lathe work. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration have certain requirements for notifying them when a workplace injury has occurred. We must report a fatality or severe injury. All employers are required to notify OSHA when an employee is killed in the job or suffers a work-related hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye. A fatality must be reported within 8 hours. An inpatient hospitalization, amputation, or eye loss must be reported within 24 hours. Please be prepared to supply the business name, names of employees affected, location and time of the event, and a brief description of the event, contact person, and a phone number. Internal notification requirements. OX is an injury notification standard operating procedure. In that standard operating procedure, line 3.4, corporate safety engineers shall be notified via telephone of any recordable injury immediately, no matter severity. Line 3.5, definition of injury severity. If the injury requires an employee to be transported for medical attention or a death occurs, this will prompt an immediate notification via telephone after normal business hours to the vice president of that division, as well as the corporate safety engineer. Line 4.1. A phone call notification from the general manager to the VP of that division and the corporate safety engineer must be made immediately if the injury occurs within normal business hours. A brief description of the injury will be required. 4.1a. If the injury occurs after normal business hours and does not have the severity to prompt an immediate notification, then notify the required parties at the start of the following business day. An example, if an employee requires transportation to a medical facility, the severity prompts an immediate notification. Questions. OX tries to facilitate an environment in which questions and constructive feedback are welcome. So feel free to ask any questions or give me any feedback on this presentation, and I will promptly follow up and have a discussion with you. Have a good day.